Do you know where that gun is today?
Specifically, no. Like I said, when I went to New York, I gave it back to him.
Well, so since you became involved, since you've known about where that gun went, since you gave it back, at some point in time, did you become aware that, you know what, the fact that it's a prop gun is important in this case?
Yes.
And you understand that if it's a prop gun, the defendant cannot be guilty of the charges because it's not a real gun. You understand that, correct?
That's correct. It's a problem.
So what efforts did you make in the last 3 years to try to get that prop gun back so that you could demonstrate, hey, my brother, he didn't do this crime? Did you make any efforts?
Yeah, I asked the co-director if he had it still, and he doesn't.
When did you ask him?
Specifically, I don't remember, sir.
Now, isn't it true, sir, that you testified you returned it in January of 2022?
That's correct, yes.
Did it seem strange to you that you were returning a gun?
A prop gun.
Huh?
A prop gun?
Is a prop gun a gun?
It's a prop gun.
So when I say gun, you don't need to correct me.
Okay.
When you returned the gun, in January of 2022, by that time, you were aware that your friend Rocky was potentially going to be getting in some trouble as it relates to that incident, correct?
No, I was not aware of that.
So, but you certainly knew 3 months later in April, correct?
Yes, when he got arrested, I knew he was...
And you knew that day, as soon as you heard about it, you knew, oh my God, I've got information, that gun's not real, correct? You knew that day.
Yes.
Did you go get the gun?
I was in LA. The gun, like I said, I gave it to the director in New York in January.
Did you make an effort to try to get the gun?
I told you I contacted him to see if he still had it.
When did you contact him?
And again, I don't recall the exact date, sir. This is 3 years ago.
Isn't it true, sir, that you didn't contact him for more than a year?
Sir, to be honest, I don't know the exact date I contacted him.
Well, let me ask you something, sir. Wouldn't you have instantly, the day you heard about the defendant getting arrested, wouldn't you have jumped on a plane to get back there and find that prop gun that would have gotten your brother out of the trouble that he was in? Wouldn't you have done it?
Sir, I contacted the director. I don't know exactly when to see if he had it, and he doesn't have it anymore.
And so you just did you ask him what he did with it?
Yes.
Did you investigate further once he told you?
No, I didn't. I mean, he doesn't have it anymore. I don't know which one is it.
Did you go to the police and tell them what you knew?
No.
Did you go to the prosecution and tell them what you knew?
No.
You're aware that he had a preliminary hearing in November of 2023. You're aware of that preliminary hearing, correct?
Yes.
You knew it was publicized in the media, correct?
Yes. Yes.
You knew that, based at that time, that your brother, your close friend, could not have committed this crime because it wasn't a real gun, and you didn't do anything, did you?
I knew it was a prop gun.
Does you yourself, knowing it's a prop gun, does that help your brother with his legal problem if you don't tell anybody?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
You said you knew it was a prop gun.
Yes.
My question is, you understand the police, the prosecution, and the court needs to understand it's a prop gun in order for you to help him, right?
Yeah, nobody contacted me from the police or the courts. Nobody contacted me until like 2 weeks ago, like from the police or the
Wait,
courts.
would you, sir, have had every incentive, every motive, every desire to contact the police and the prosecution to tell them, hey, my buddy, my close friend, my brother Rocky is innocent. That was a fake gun. Wouldn't you have had every motivation to do that?
I knew that this was going to court, and I knew I would have my time to speak about it here to the jury.
Well, so you decided you would wait, have your brother held to answer, have him brought to trial in front of 12 jurors, rather than simply going to the police and prosecutors and telling them, hey, listen, that was a fake gun. Is that your testimony?
like I said, I knew that this case was going to trial, and I would have my opportunity to speak here in front of the jury and explain it.
I want
All right, everybody, and welcome to Justice Watch Live, episode 29. We're not live, but we are going to be airing this as a live premiere. So I won't be able to be responding to your comments, but there it is, guys. We just heard the testimony you just heard. If ASAP Rocky ends up getting convicted, that will be why. That testimony, in my opinion, and it's funny because this is not the testimony coming from a prosecution witness. That was testimony coming from a witness called by ASAP Rocky's defense. And I have to question why they called this witness, or at least why they failed to prepare this witness for cross-examination. I understand they needed to make a showing and they needed to put evidence on of a prop gun. And this guy was obviously providing that. But it was extremely damaging, the story he's telling. As you heard, the prosecutor on cross-examination, as this guy walked himself into a trap time and again, and we're going to get into this testimony and break it down because this is the most consequential testimony for ASAP Rocky. If he ends up convicted, this testimony will be why. This will be the reason why jurors will convict ASAP Rocky. It won't be because of anything Raleigh said. It won't be because of anything else. And we're going to get into why that is. The first thing you need to understand is what is he charged with? He's charged with 2 counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm. So what does that require the state to prove? It requires him to prove a gun, and it requires him to say that he discharged the gun towards ASAP Raleigh with an intent to harm him. Now, obviously, Joe Tacopina covered in the closing argument that there is an obligation to disprove self-defense, or that it wasn't in self-defense, and they have raised that, and they were able to use 12E to say that. ASAP 12E. But the core of the defense's case here is that the firearm wasn't an actual firearm. It was a prop gun, which is an element of the crime of assault with a semi-automatic weapon. So it doesn't matter. If that's not a semi-automatic weapon, the state's failed to prove that element, and they have to prove that element beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's basically the focus of this case. And that witness that you just heard was on the stand telling the jury that the firearm that was used in that incident was a prop gun, and that prop gun was given back to him, and he put it in a warehouse, and then eventually he returned it to New York to the individual who gave the prop gun to ASAP Rocky as part of a music video. And for obvious reasons, as you just heard in that testimony, there's a problem. ASAP Rocky was well aware, as were his people, as was his manager, as was everyone, that Raleigh was making allegations against him, that there was an active, ongoing LAPD investigation, regardless of what this guy says. He says he wasn't aware, which to me is totally ridiculous. They were all aware. Raleigh had been contacted. This is a close-knit group of people. Raleigh's on the inside, and Raleigh's telling everybody, I'm going after ASAP's money. And that was well proven in this case. And what happens? They don't secure this prop gun. And this testimony highlights that this gentleman, and you heard the exchange, a key exchange in that testimony, where he says, listen, you could have gone to New York. You could have secured this prop gun. You could have contacted the police. You could have killed this case before it ever made it to trial, before it ever resulted in ASAP Rocky being charged and being arrested and being having to go through and spend the probably millions of dollars he spent on Joe Tacopina as a defense lawyer. And yet you didn't. And why didn't you? Why would you not have done that at that point if this was a prop gun? And that is what will resonate with the jury, because that is a fantastic question, because that is the thing that doesn't make any sense. And whether you like ASAP Raleigh or not, the bottom line is the state has boxed ASAP Rocky's defense team into a corner, essentially. They got them to stipulate that that there was a weapon, or that there was a weapon fired that night. They got them to stipulate that, or they presented evidence independent of ASAP Raleigh of the videos showing that a shooting occurred. They put a witness on the stand who said she heard 2 gunshots and witnessed the shooting. You've got 12 who says, yeah, a shooting occurred, right? Now the question then becomes, do you trust 12 and do you trust Lou in telling them that it was a prop gun? And in both instances, Lou is more damaging than 12. You've got credibility issues because those are the 2 people saying it was a prop gun that night. And yet here we are sitting, neither of them could explain why there weren't measures and steps taken to secure that prop gun, even though it was Relly reaches out and makes Rocky and everyone aware that, look, he's looking for money or he's going to go to the police. And and we're not even going to get into the tape that was played where Relly is talking on the tape. And as much as Relly looked terrible in court on that tape, he's talking about the fact he sounds very credible on that tape from the fact that, listen, Relly's trying to take advantage of the situation, right? That's in front of him. And the situation in front of him is that a fight broke out, gunshots were fired. There's now evidence that on video camera, on the witness that viewed this incident from her apartment, on 911 calls that were made, police showed up at the scene looking for evidence of gunshots. And the bottom line is, as the state showed, and this is the thing that the defense walked into because they're not even disputing this. They said, listen, something would have ejected from that gun. So this jury is going to go back to this jury room. And what are they going to have here? They're going to go, okay, if they're following the case, something ejects from the gun, meaning if ASAP Rocky's defense has conceded, as they did by stipulation, that 2 shots were fired that night, that they're not conceding what type of gun it was. That's obviously at issue. So when the police arrived on the scene and searched and did this voluminous search, which the defense was originally saying, hey, I guess they didn't realize, I'm not sure, but it sounded like they didn't realize that something was going to eject from the gun, or they didn't think that would get before the jury. So their argument was they do this voluminous search of the area and they found nothing. And then Relly comes back in and finds these 2 bullets. And I think the idea behind the defense was going to be to make the final argument of, listen, they didn't find anything because it was a prop gun. That's why they didn't find anything. Well, ASAP Lou comes on the stand and he blows that out of the water. And the prosecution blows that completely out of the water, and which is why they had the final stipulation have to come through. Just this witness is a complete disaster for the defense. I don't know why he was called. I mean, I understand what they were trying to do. I understand they were trying to prove something, but this is why when you're the defense and the state has the burden, you don't try to prove anything. And I'm very surprised that an experienced lawyer of the ilk of Joe Tacopina would make a mistake like this, would bring a witness as unprepared for cross-examination as this guy was. Because you can tell, as we're going to watch some clips of his cross-examination by Lewin, who, like him, hate him, whatever, he's an aggressive cross-examiner and he's a good lawyer in the sense of he knows how to question witnesses, he knows how to corner witnesses, and he knows how to control the courtroom. Whether you liked it or not, he was controlling the courtroom. Joe Tacopina and the defense are banking on that Lewin was not likable, that he wasn't someone the jury was going to like, and they're hoping that they're going to hate Lewin, they're going to hate Relly, and they're going to come and say, you know what, we're just going to we think this case sucks. But listen, at the end of the day, this jury is also going, you can't bank on that, because a guy like Lewin scored serious points, whether you like it or not. And the defense is 10 points, which, while I respect Joe Tacopina, it's a great strategy. I respect what he was doing, but all of those 10 questions and reasonable doubts deal with Relly. And the bottom line is the jury is a finder of fact. We all know that. So when they go back to that jury room, if they say, okay, we're going to disregard Relly. And if you notice, Lewin, in his rebuttal argument, didn't even address those 10 things because he said, well, I don't need to. In fact, put Relly aside. Let's talk about what exists. And what he talked about was this testimony right here that we just watched. Well, part of the testimony he watched. Because this witness was, as Lewin said, the best witness for the prosecution, because he brought to the jury the fact that the prop gun discharges shells if it's a semi-automatic, and that this prop gun was in fact modified to do that. Meaning that the fact that the police didn't find anything didn't mean anything, because they should have found, since they're conceding that 2 shots were fired, they should have found the 2 prop gun shells. Now, Joe Tacopina comes up and says, well, there's a difference. There's this. There's been no evidence or showing. Well, there wasn't, except by your witness, right? Your witness describes, and it's right in here, how the prop gun works and what it sends out, and they showed it to the jury. So it's right before the jury. So the jury knows this. So if I'm ASAP Rocky right now, I would not be sitting as comfortable as you are acting like you are in the courtroom when you're standing up side-eyeing the prosecutor, because that prosecuting attorney did a pretty good job of creating the evidence out of the witnesses your defense put on. If your defense does, if they didn't put a defense on and they let Relly stand, Relly would have been on trial. And that's the bad part about this. All 3 witnesses that the defense put on, Samji, they played the tape, and then the prosecution plays the whole tape. And then you actually hear the only time that Relly becomes credible. Lou comes on. And what happens? Suddenly now the jury learns that this prop gun, all the lengths that the defense went to try to suggest that this prop gun would have not shot out a bullet, Lou says, yeah, in fact, it was. I modified it myself, and I modified it so that it was modified so it would eject the bullet because it's semi-automatic. Boom. On top of that, we find out the ridiculousness of the fact that after all of this happens, after all of, this whole incident occurs, and Relly is allegedly trying to extort ASAP Rocky, and ASAP Rocky's upset about it. ASAP Rocky says, destroy the evidence that could have absolutely exonerated me. Go destroy it, Lou. Take it back to New York and let it get lost. You don't do that with exculpatory evidence that could absolutely exonerate you. You do that when you have a real firearm that you discharged in the middle of LA. And a jury, as Joe Tacopina today said on Justice Served, he said, we have a very intelligent jury. Well, Joe, that would concern me. Because if you have a very intelligent jury, this jury, this is not going to be lost on them. This will not be lost on the jurors that will be back there. And yeah, they're going to come with a quick verdict, I think. I think they're going to come with a quick guilty verdict against ASAP Rocky, potentially. Because if they go back there, and there are, and again, they could also find them not guilty completely, because they could, we could have 12 jurors who are just absolutely disgusted by Lewin. But one way to take Lewin is that Lewin, as he tried to position himself, he said, I'm fighting a powerful person. This guy has, if you notice the way the prosecution very expertly kind of presented things and centered things. And it was, this guy has a team of lawyers. He's a power center. He's sitting in the courtroom yelling out at a witness at ASAP 12. He don't answer that. He thinks he's in complete control. He thinks he's in control of all of you. And what Lewin basically shouted out to them and said, we need to send a message that money, power, all of that doesn't matter. You stand in the middle of our streets, in the middle of LA, and you put people at risk by firing a firearm, you're going to be held accountable. And ladies and gentlemen, don't worry about Relly. I understand Relly is an unlikable person. I understand it might be hard to stomach that this idiot's going to get $30 million, but maybe he won't, because that's going to be considered by another jury at another time in another court. But what we're going to be considering here is, does it make any sense that the main piece of evidence that would have exonerated him, that would have ensured that no civil judgment would have ever been entered, that the police would have never even pursued this, that no man hours would have been spent on it, if they would have delivered to the police station a prop gun and said, this is the prop gun that he had with him that night. Here it is. Here it is, guys. Semi-automatic, 9mm. There it is. Don't know where he got those bullets from, but it's this. But instead, we have this. No prop gun. We know a gun was fired, but we know that ASAP Rocky made the decision to destroy the evidence that could have exonerated him. And while, yes, some would say, well, is that beyond a reasonable doubt? Well, yeah, it is to me. It could be. I think if a jury goes back to that jury room and says to themselves, wow, is that reasonable that somebody would destroy the only evidence, the main evidence that could have exonerated them? Is that reasonable that they would do that? No, I don't think there's any doubt at all what that was in his hand. The only thing is that once he got a good attorney and he got a slick attorney and you got Joe Tacopina involved, then he says, at some point they decide this is the defense they're going to go with. They don't raise the defense at the preliminary hearing. They don't let anyone know for 3 years. And here we are. So if I'm ASAP Rocky, listen, I'm concerned. I'm very, very concerned because the people around you if it was a prop gun, the people you had around you did you wrong. And to me, this is some damning stuff. Now, we're going to get into some things here, as we go here. So, I prepared a little analysis here. We're going to walk through this testimony, and then we're going to watch some. We're going to watch some excerpts, and we're going to also walk through the testimony here. I'm going to walk you through it. So let's jump here. So this is a little breakdown that I prepared here. It's the key point. So the role. This is Rocky's tour manager. This is who this gentleman is that you just saw testifying. He's testifying about the alleged prop gun, firearm handling, and the magazine found at Rocky's house. So his key testimony points. He worked for ASAP Rocky since 2010. He became his tour manager in 2017-18. He claims Rocky carried a Glock 26 prop gun for security, modified with a clip draw for easy waistband concealment. He denies ever seeing Rocky carry a real gun in public. He confirms that he himself is licensed for firearms since 2020 and has taken Rocky to a shooting range. He acknowledges leaving a Glock 43 magazine at Rocky's house, but denies it was tied to a real firearm because he claimed that he bought the firearm. It was bought mistakenly. And now the prosecutor challenges his credibility and contradictions regarding the timing of when he told Rocky's lawyers 3 years after the incident and his inconsistent memory about ASAP Rocky's alleged financial demands. So the prosecution's cross-examination strategy, and this is where it just went completely off the range. They questioned the credibility of his testimony. They asked why he didn't inform police about the prop gun earlier if he knew all along. Points out that he only spoke to the defense team in August of 2024, years after the incident. The magazine found at Rocky's house, prosecutors claimed that the magazine was the second magazine for a real gun used in the shooting, and it was left behind when Rocky's team disposed of the weapon. ASAP Blue says he accidentally left it while handling his own gun, insisting no real gun existed. And he claims he had it there because they were going to a shooting range and he was drinking and he was fidgeting and whatnot. The prosecution drops a huge bombshell in their cross-examination at 122. They revealed that they called the person that ASAP Blue claimed he gave the gun to, and we're going to watch that moment here. But they claimed that he called the person to whom ASAP Blue claims he gave the gun to, and that person had no recollection of that happening. And that's damning. But we're going to watch this, discrediting his story. And the prosecution, the prop gun versus real gun argument, they claim that they argued that the prop gun could still be used for intimidation, especially if the victim doesn't know it's fake. And ASAP Blue is forced to admit that a prop gun cannot fire a warning shot, which undercuts Rocky's defense team. And again, another moment where the incompetence of calling this witness was shown because one of the witnesses, the only witness that he called that was an actual witness to the event, which was ASAP 12, said under cross-examination, under pressure, says that Rocky that Rocky was firing warning shots, which in and of itself might not sound bad, except for the fact, as Lou just pointed out, and as was pointed out on cross-examination, in 12 he had to concede that, guess what? Yeah, you can't. Why would you be firing warning shots with a prop gun? Every shot's a warning shot because none of them are fatal or can hurt you. But anyways, let's watch this moment here where the prosecution unveils that they made a phone call. Here it is.
You made to try to get the gun back from the individual in New York.
I asked him if he still had it.
And when he told you that he didn't, did you make any further effort to track down where he was?
I don't know what other further effort I could have made.
But did you ask him what did he do with it?
I asked him where it was, and he said it's gone.
Did he give you a name of who he gave it to?
He didn't. He doesn't know where it went. When he, to my understanding, is he has a studio right in New York that him and his other creatives they all use. It's like a studio where they keep camera equipment, they keep lighting equipment, they keep prop equipment. It's kind of like a common space, so someone can come in and borrow a camera, borrow a prop for different shoots, and it got misplaced, it got stolen. He said stuff gets missing all the time.
You are aware, sir, that this morning we were finally given the name of the individual that you are saying that you gave the gun to in New York, correct?
Correct.
Objection to relevant charge.
The court has made a ruling on this previously, Your Honor.
Objection overruled.
Are you aware that we called that individual this morning and spoke to him?
Yes.
And it's your testimony that that individual, if asked what happened to the gun, his response would have been, I have no idea.
Objection, Your Honor. It's irrelevant. Statute of statutes.
I can play it, Your Honor,
Sustained.
if you'd like. The court made certain rulings.
The objection is sustained. Do you recall the other day I talked about speaking objections, arguing?
I do.
Remember that? Do you remember that?
I do.
All right, I'm keeping track of every speaking objection that is made, every argument with the witness, argument with me. I'm keeping track of all that. He made an objection. I sustained it. Go on, give me the next question.
Have you asked this individual directly for the name of the person that he gave the gun to?
Like I said, I don't know what happened to the gun after the prop
The
gun.
motion to strike is non-responsive.
He's already answered the question. He doesn't know.
No, that's not what I asked, Your Honor. Did
Read it back.
Have you asked this individual directly for the name of the person that he gave the gun
All right.
to?
No, that's fair.
Objection, Your Honor, misstates the testimony. He didn't say he gave it.
Over. Have you asked him for the name of the person that he gave the gun
That, wait, that is not what he has testified to.
to? Your Honor, he
He
testified.
said he didn't give it to, he gave it to the person who he got it from.
And I've asked him if he asked the person that he gave it to.
Oh, I see, okay, all right, I got the question, all right.
Have you asked the person that you gave it to the name of the person that he gave the gun to?
I don't. I asked him if he still had it, and he said no. I didn't ask him. He didn't. When I spoke to him about it, he didn't know where it went. So I didn't ask him who he gave it to because I wasn't aware he gave it to anybody.
But, so when he said no, you didn't ask any further question or make any further effort to find out where the gun was. Is that
I
correct?
asked him if we could get it back, and he said no, it was gone.
Did you ask him any further question? Yes or no?
No.
I want to go to my last area here. I want to talk about prop gun. You're aware that when a prop gun is fired, a semi-automatic prop gun, that although nothing comes out of the barrel, that it has a prop load, correct?
Can you? What is a problem? Do?
So
All right, so there you heard. We're gonna get into this next section because it actually rides right into the other disaster that we were talking about earlier, where and he's getting into it right now, where he talks about the fact that the prop gun actually ejects projectiles that were fired, and is capable of doing so, which is just an absolute disaster for the defense, because that is not what, the defense had gone through great lengths to talk about the lack of shells being found and the fact that there should be something being found, whether it's a prop gun or it's a real gun, is a complete disaster for the defense. But anyways, we're getting into that. But as you just heard, he says that, and again, it's by implication, but there was a hearing outside or sidebar outside the ears of the jury. But there's an implication here that what ASAP Lou is saying isn't going to match up with what the prosecution heard when they made a phone call that day and talked to the individual that he gave the gun to. And that's problematic. And I guess there's a phone call, and I guess he was trying to corner him and walk him in to get a denial out of it. Because if he did say that, then I guess they were going to be able to play the tape, and we would have actually been able to hear exactly what that conversation was. But this is a complete disaster for the defense. I mean, it's completely unthinkable that ASAP Lou would be not interested in wanting to establish through this, or would not be wanting to establish and find where this gun was, and want to get custody back of this prop gun. I mean, it's the key piece of evidence that would exonerate ASAP Rocky. So why in the world would he not want to get a hold of that evidence? And that's where this whole thing starts to fall apart for the defense with this witness. And that's where this witness becomes a complete, in my opinion, disaster for the defense, because it makes no sense. It just makes no sense. It's a disaster. It's an unmitigated disaster. And the fact that an attorney of the caliber of Joe Tacopina wasn't aware of these pitfalls and totally torpedoes his case, in my opinion, with this witness is just shocking. Because I think, what I witnessed of Joe Tacopina, he seemed like a very good attorney. He reminded me a lot of my dad and his tactics that I remember seeing as a kid growing up and watching. And I found it interesting today. I found out that Joe Tacopina he was telling the Justice Serve that he had done 120 jury trials. My dad had done 119 jury trials in 19 years. And Joe Tacopina, I think, I'm not sure how long he's been around. I think he's been around 20 or 30 years, and he'd done 120 jury trials. And I thought, obviously he's an experienced guy. He's a good lawyer. And, in this, sometimes I think when you're caught up and when you have a prosecutor like Lewin, where you're just wanting to kick their ass, things like, it's like putting this witness on, weighing back and forth and not seeing the idea that, there's the downside of this witness was far greater than the upside of this witness and what the witness was going to bring. And just recognizing that, listen, fall on the burden of the state and say, listen, the state failed to meet its burden. Through ASAP 12E, they could have put through him that this was a prop gun, and that Rocky had with him a prop gun that evening. They could have let him be there and be the one that spoke about that, and not walked into this complete disaster of talking about how the prop gun works and how it ejects projectiles and all the things that you're about to hear. But anyways, I mean, just complete disaster. But let's go back to the breakdown here. So the breakdown here, we have, like I said, it's reveals that ASAP Lou, we were at the point where it was a bombshell where ASAP Lou found out that prosecutors had been in contact. Prop gun versus real gun argument. The prosecution argues that a prop gun could still be used for intimidation, especially if the victim doesn't know it's fake. But again, even if that is true, but it still requires it be an actual gun in order for the charges to be proven. So the defense's strongest points, ASAP Lou insisted there was no real gun, only a prop gun. That was the sole purpose of it being called, because this puts the evidence into the record that allows them to assert that defense. Provides an alternative explanation for the magazine found at Rocky's house. And so Lou kind of was forced on the stand because of that, because he was coming up to take the fall on the sword for that, which again is another ridiculous story. Lou says he's a fidgeter, and there he is at the house, and he's drunk, and he leaves this clip there, a clip that he says he inadvertently bought because, of course, on cross-examination, he is a registered gun owner in California, meaning he would either have to say he owned an unregistered firearm, which would be a crime, or he would have to say and have an explanation for why he had a clip to a gun that he didn't own. And he said, oh, it was a mistake that when you're buying these in the store, they look very similar to each other, and he didn't even realize it. But he just still loaded it up anyways because he said he's a fidgeter. So he likes to load gun clips and unload gun clips when he's sitting there talking, because that's just something he does because he's a firearm aficionado. Again, I guess the jury doesn't have to fully believe it. It's just they just have to believe it enough that it raises a doubt. But I mean, again, there's a term called reasonable doubt, and when you're looking at this stuff, it's like, not very reasonable. And when you're putting the whole picture together of all the unreasonable things that Rocky's people did, and you say it seems like what they're doing is covering up that their man, their guy that's paying all their bills, that's responsible for their livelihoods, that this guy is saying, I'm going to fall on a sword for Rocky. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do for you because you took me in, you changed my life, you made me your manager, you connected me in the music world, and you gave me things I could have never had without the relationship I had with you. So I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to take credit for the gun clip. I'm going to come in. I'm going to say that I sent the prop gun out. I'm going to vouch for the prop gun defense. And I'm going to come in and put this before the jury and roll the dice that now that we have this evidence before the jury, I'm willing to come in and again, potentially commit perjury on behalf of his friend. The same thing that the defense, of course, is getting all higher than now about on Relly. But the bottom line is none of these witnesses are needed because all we have to do is look at what the video says and what the other evidence is, which shows that a shooting occurred. It was stipulated that a shooting occurred. The only thing at hand is it a prop gun or is it not a prop gun? Of course, the defense is saying, well, there's not enough evidence to say it wasn't. It was an actual real firearm, and the state has to prove that. Well, they do, right? They do. But one of the things that goes to that determination is certainly why, and again, that's something that I think Linda Kenny Biden and her co-host were saying was burden shifting. It kind of was, but it wasn't, because the defense put this witness up and the defense put this evidence before the jury. So it wasn't shifting a burden on them. It was just this guy comes up and says, this is what we did. And now the jury gets to consider that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense that they would destroy exculpatory evidence? Does that make any sense at all? And if they wouldn't have done that, then the jury would say, well, why are they acting this way? Why are they getting rid of a firearm? Well, the only reason why they'd be getting rid of a firearm is because it's an actual real gun, and they were trying to cover this thing up to make sure that when this thing got before a jury, the state would be hamstrung and unable to combat the prop gun defense. And again, as I said, if this jury gets back there and says, listen, we are going to look at this witness, we're going to look at these witnesses, and we're going to go, okay, what do we think happened here? There was clearly bad blood between Relly and ASAP. They clearly weren't getting along. ASAP lost his cool, and the question is, did he pull a gun out, and did he fire this gun in the direction of ASAP Relly? And if it was and again, if they say, well, yeah, he did all those things, then the question is, was that a real gun in his hand? So now they go, okay, the defense has lodged a defense and said, okay, the state has to disprove that it was a prop gun. Well, the best evidence to disprove it was a prop gun, which the jury could certainly adopt, is, well, they didn't save the prop gun. They got rid of it. They shipped it up to New York, got rid of it, never followed up on it, never tried to do anything further on it, didn't even call that. Why would you not subpoena the guy from New York? Why would that guy not have been brought in? And that is a legitimate argument that can be made to that jury for them to consider. And when they consider that and they put everything else together, they can say, you know what? There's proof beyond a reasonable doubt here. We don't even need Relly. Relly is not a factor. All right, so let's get into the defense's strongest points. I think I was in the middle of that and I kind of ran off on a tangent. It says, provides an alternative explanation for the magazine found at Rocky's house. Testifies that Rocky carried the prop gun for security reasons, which may help justify his actions. suggests ASAP Relly was financially motivated, bolstering Rocky's claim that Relly wanted money. Prosecution's strongest points. ASAP Lou's timeline of events is questionable. Why wait 3 years to talk to the defense team? And again, this is the very troublesome aspects of the testimony. His explanation for the magazine seems too convenient. The prosecution directly called the person he claimed to have given the gun to, potentially exposing a lie. Cross-examination revealed contradictions, weakening his credibility, and video evidence may contradict Rocky's self-defense claim, showing him running with the gun out, which is, of course, the jury will be able to assess that because they had all of that. So we've got a few timestamps to review here. We're going to go through not necessarily all of them that I have here because we've already watched a couple of the key ones, but we're going to go back and watch this disaster that happens right after we have the bombshell of the phone call. They get into the big disaster. The secondary disaster, almost as big as the first one, where they interject evidence into contradicting their own defense, their own efforts that they put out there to show that the police did this exhaustive search and didn't find anything, and they demonstrate that really doesn't matter. And they, in a sense, bolster Relly's testimony with this witness's testimony because the witness says, well, yeah, there should have been something ejected from the gun. So the fact that the police didn't find anything there at that time doesn't mean anything. And the fact that Relly shows up there and says, okay, I found these two bullets, and here they are. And then again, another argument that was made that I think was a strong argument by the state was that, listen, when Relly was first telling everybody this, and it's all documented through text messages and things, he's saying there was 3 to 4 shots. That's what he tells the police. And then he turns over 2 bullets. And then lo and behold, when they get a hold of the doorbell footage that comes from the neighborhood, guess what? They find out 2 shots rang out. And there's two bullets. And while I understand he lied about being at a gun range, and while that does look damning, it's also got to have the idea that he would have any knowledge that he's going to be involved in this situation with ASAP Rocky. And what is the likelihood that he would even be bringing from a gun range? Why would you bring home spent shells? I mean, does that make any sense? I mean, it's the opportunity to get them, but why the hell would he bring them home with him? I mean, did the defense question him? And did they have anybody that could have come in and said, yeah, Relly loves to collect shells. I've been with him to a gun range. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Now, of course, the defense's argument is, well, if there's a doubt, could it have happened? Well, it could have, but is it reasonable to think that it would have? And is it reasonable to think that this guy's going to be like, you know what, let me go? Now, if he had gone to a gun range after the fact, the day after, and gone to a gun range and they had it on videotape, that would be quite significant because that would mean he could have taken those 2 shells. But the fact that he went 2 weeks before, I mean, it means he had the opportunity, but it doesn't mean he did. And then when you bolster, and then when you go in and you take into account ASAP Lou and the ridiculousness of his testimony and the steps that were taken after this and the actions and behavior of Rocky afterwards, and we didn't hear Rocky testify, not that he has to, but the jury's left with this idea that says, you know what, listen, it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, the defense doesn't make any sense in this case. The prop gun theory doesn't make any sense. He just abandons carrying a prop gun after this. He gives it away, and then it mysteriously gets lost. And then nobody cares about getting it back once they've realized that there's a criminal investigation, just like John Lewin said, hey, you were there for the search. Why didn't you? Why didn't you go up to the Detective Flores and say, Detective Flores, listen, this is all a big misunderstanding, man. It's a prop gun. I got a guy in New York City. We can go get this thing, man. Send a couple people down there. I'll help you go get it. This is a prop gun. This isn't real. And the idea that they wouldn't have done that they would have just let Rocky get arrested. And at that point, they were acting like they were scared because they knew Rocky got caught doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. And at that particular moment, ASAP Lou didn't understand what the defense was going to be. And then when it became clear that they were going to go to trial in August, ASAP Lou steps up to take the bullet for him and says, I'm going to repay you, Rocky, for everything you've done for me in my life because I'm going to try to save you in the last minute. I'm going to vouch for the magazine. I'm going to vouch for the prop gun. And I'm willing to take the bullet, so to speak, and try to save your life. So let's watch the rest of this disaster occur here, and we'll watch a few other clips from the cross-examination because it was an absolute, I mean, it was actually, in a way, it was a masterclass, in my opinion, of cross-examining. Because Lewin is, whether you like him or not, I don't like the guy. I think he's a jerk, but he's a good lawyer. And he knows how to command a courtroom, and he knows how to get witnesses where he wants them. And man, oh man. So is Joe Tacopina, though. I mean, Joe Tacopina did a masterclass, and I'm going to be airing that tomorrow, the entire testimony of Relly. I think that's fitting for while the jury's back there deliberating. We get to watch Relly and get to watch that the entire testimony. It's 9 hours long, and to sit and watch the whole thing. I have actually watched it because I was editing it, and it's really, really, you walk away. I mean, you really understand this guy really doesn't have any credibility, but I don't think that matters, or it might not matter. Maybe it does. Maybe this jury will dislike Relly so much, or maybe at least one juror will. You never know. But anyways, let's keep watching here.
Semi-automatic prop gun. You're putting prop rounds in a magazine.
Correct, yes.
And the gun that you're talking about that you gave the defendant was a Glock semi-automatic prop gun, correct?
Correct.
And the way that gun works is the gun is fired. When it is fired, a cartridge ejects out of the side and the next round cycles. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Did you actually load the prop gun?
Yes.
What kind of ammunition did you use to load the prop gun?
It was the blank ammunition that came with it. I don't remember exactly what brand it was.
But you would agree it's a 9mm prop ammo, so it's a round, but instead of being, let me use what we've got here. May I approach, Your Honor?
You don't have to ask.
This is a 9mm hollow point, correct?
Yes, correct.
You know what a hollow point is, right?
Yes.
Hollow point at the tip, it's not fully jacketed. It doesn't come to a complete surface. It's got a hole in it. Is that correct?
Yeah, the point is hollow, yes, correct.
And when this round is fired, the casing, which is in the back, ejects out the side and the bullet goes forward, right?
In a live gun, yes.
Yes. And the difference between this round, which is a real 9mm round, and what you loaded is that instead of having a bullet, a projectile at the tip that fires, it actually has what is in essence a paper bullet, and it doesn't go anywhere and nothing comes out of the barrel. Is that correct?
It's like crimped at the end, so it can't actually fire anything, yeah.
But it makes the sound, correct?
It does.
And it ends up putting out a muzzle flash, correct?
Yeah.
And it ejects the expended casing out of the side, correct?
That's correct.
So when you fire it, no bullet comes out, cartridge gets ejected, the gun automatically, semi-automatic, cycles the next round into the chamber, and you repeat for as many live rounds as you have. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding of how a prop gun works, correct.
So there you have it, guys. And when I say disaster, that's a disaster right there for the defense. And why is that a disaster for the defense? Because he just became a expert on a prop gun. He just presented, because remember, testimony is evidence, and he just told the jury that a cartridge ejects not the bullet, but a cartridge will eject when a semi-automatic prop gun fires, and it would have hit the ground. Meaning, when the police showed up and they're doing their search, they should have found a prop gun round, and it just like they should have found a real live round. They didn't find anything. And the answer to that, of course, is that, well, you know what? It was late, whatever. They spent 20 minutes searching and they found nothing. And the defense, of course, was going to make a big deal about this and say they should have found a live ammunition if it was there. It wasn't. It was a prop gun. And they were going to, make the argument that, listen, it's a prop gun. That's why they didn't find anything. But then this ASAP Lou destroys them, destroys this argument, and takes that away from them. In the closing argument, that is the exact argument that both of the prosecutors made, which was that the fact that nothing was found is no longer a reasonable doubt. They destroyed it. They took it away. And on top of that, the fact that Relly went back and found this, now again, taking, with a grain of salt, Relly, let's just say we disregard that. Let's just say we say Relly went and somehow got 2 9mm cartridges and threw it out. But you can't just dismiss and say that Relly couldn't have found those 9mm cartridges. But if you just dismiss that, right, and you just say, okay, outright dismiss it, again, you still get left with ASAP Lou telling this jury that ASAP Rocky was allegedly firing a prop gun in the middle of the street, that he was aware that Relly was wanting to come at him, that was wanting to sue him, was wanting to file criminal charges against him, and that instead of saying, hey, you know what, preserve this prop gun, get it to my attorney, go work your magic, go down to LAPD, tell them it's a prop gun, turn over the prop gun, tell them, explain to them, listen, this guy's the aggressor, this guy should be charged, this guy's coming at me, it was a prop gun, I was trying to defend myself. What does Rocky do? He doesn't cooperate. He destroys the prop gun. He doesn't offer any statements. He doesn't offer any evidence. And the people that can help him decide to wait until he goes on trial. And then, of course, we, the public, know that they then wait until the eve of the trial to drop this testimony on him from Lou, which is what upset the prosecutors. And Lou comes back and says, yeah, hey, we sent the prop gun to New York. And then, of course, they withhold the name of the people so the state can't properly investigate. And then the state has a conversation with him. And apparently that conversation is not helpful to Rocky because the way it's presented and the way it's discussed in front of the jury in cross-examination, it wasn't something that was helpful. It wasn't something that verified the story. So what the heck? This doesn't sound like the actions of someone who was handling a prop gun that night. It just flies in the sense of making any sense, especially to smart, intelligent people, especially to a rocket scientist. So if I was ASAP Rocky, I would be a little bit worried right now, because if that jury goes back there, and again, what do we know about juries? We know juries can be crazy people, right? We know in the Crumley case, the jury decided that the sole piece of evidence in the Crumley case was the fact that she didn't secure, this is against the Crumley mom, was that she didn't secure the firearm, even though that did not even seem to be the part that anybody thought they were going to convict on. That was something that the dad was responsible for, yet that was what a juror said back in the jury room, and they were deadlocked and they were deliberating. That was the moving force that said, you know what, that's what it was. And in fact, that wasn't even the way the juror was thinking about it wasn't even a legally justifiable way to get to a conviction under these circumstances. But the juror didn't understand that. The juror just latched onto this and said, boom, Ferris case. They were all caught up and how they were going to get the body down. And then somebody said, it doesn't matter how she got the body down. You know, she could have gotten done any number of ways, but that's not enough to say you don't care. Although it should have been. And I think Melody Ferris is more likely than not potentially innocent. That blew up the deadlock jury and they went out. When somebody goes back there and says in that jury room, listen, guys, we're debating something here. We've got all the pieces. You want to sit back here for days? Here's all the pieces. We got a video. Anybody disagree that there's a gun in there? No. In fact, they don't because they stipulated it. Does anybody disagree that there was a dispute in the middle of the street? No. Does anybody like Riley? No. Does anybody like the witnesses ASAP put up there? No. It all seems like they're all lying, right? So let's get down to the nuts and bolts of it. ASAP had a gun in his hand. If that was a prop gun, everybody back here, don't you think we'd see that prop gun right now? Why would ASAP get rid of it? Why would they ship it back to New York? I think we know the answer, because it wasn't a prop gun. You know what, everybody? Let's go ahead and vote guilty, and let's go home. And it's not our job or responsibility to figure out how much Relly gets paid or how much time ASAP goes to prison for. And off we go into the sunset. And when this jury comes back with a quick verdict, because I think it will be, that could very well be why, that will be the reason why it's a quick verdict and it goes to guilty. Now, on the flip side of this, if the jury goes back there, it is still conceivable that the jury goes back and says, I don't like the Relly guy. He's a liar. And for me, that's a reasonable doubt. And for me, I don't know if it was a prop gun or not. And you know what? I'm going to adopt that ASAP Blue was a credible individual, and that maybe ASAP Rocky just, it was just, hey, nobody knew exactly what was going on. ASAP really didn't think it was going to go this far, and steps were taken and things got put in a vacuum, and this is just what it's like when you're around a big star. And there you have a reasonable doubt. And the jury comes back and says, quick verdict, not guilty. You know what? We don't trust. This case sucks. This case is terrible. And everybody in the case stinks. This doesn't even deserve any more time, nor does it deserve state funds to put ASAP Rocky in jail over this garbage. And they move on and go on, and they find him not guilty. Very possible. But if he's found guilty, it will be because of this testimony. It will not be because of any evidence that the state put on. If they would have never called ASAP Blue, if they would have figured out a different way to get the prop gun information up, and I believe ASAP 12 would have been just about enough, then I believe they would be in a great position right now, and they would be definitely in a stronger position as far as ensuring that they were going to be heading to a not guilty verdict. And they would have been able to argue the things that they wanted to. They would have not had to worry. The state would have had no evidence to argue and say, hey, this is how a prop gun works. The prop gun would have shot out a shell that would have resembled a potential live ammunition, which the police should have seen, just like they should have seen the ones that really were. And it just looks like it was just the police being the police in a situation where they weren't even sure shooting at that point had actually occurred. They gave it a little bit of a search. They searched the area. They looked around, and then they went on, and they didn't find it. And only because Relly knew where to look, he comes back, he finds the 2 cartridges, and he says, oh, I'm getting paid. And the rest is history. They're not likable people, but they don't got to be in this case. So we'll see what happens. You let me know what you think happens. But like I said, just not a very not a good situation. So we're gonna watch one more deal here where he's gonna talk about the modifications that he made, because I want this to come through, because again, this is kind of where, again, this would have never gotten before the jury. They would have never known, and this is significant, they would have never known that the prop gun had the ability to eject cartridges. So here we go. And the state, and this guy had never come forward. He hadn't given a statement. Nobody actually knew that he existed or what he was going to say, and the state would have been without this testimony. So it's just so frustrating. Here we go. Let's play it. And here it is.
Who are the main characters in that video? Do you know where Rocky got the prop gun in the carry from?
Yes, he got it from that video shoot.
And how do you know that?
I was on set and I handled it there.
Have you seen him take it?
I did see him take it, yes.
When was the DMV music video recorded?
July 2021.
So about a month or 2 after that May 2021 incident with the assaulter?
Correct, yes.
Now, after the DMV video, how do you know that Rocky carried that prop gun?
I personally saw him and I handled it.
Did you see Rocky with it on November 6th, 2021?
I did, yes.
Where were you when you saw it?
We were in Long Beach at CompassCon. We had rehearsals that day for the show, which was the next day, the 7th. During rehearsals, he does like a dress rehearsal where he gets on stage and runs around and rehearses his performance. While he was running around, he handed me the prop gun to hold, so it was in safekeeping.
And based on what you've seen and heard, did Rocky hide from his friends the fact that he carried that prop gun?
Not to his close friends, no.
And how do you know that?
It was known by everyone. I mean, it was just something that everyone knew. Like his close friend circle, everybody knew that he carried a prop gun.
Have you ever seen Rocky carry a real firearm in public?
Not in public, no.
Now, the prop gun that you've been talking about, what type is it, or was it?
It was a Glock 26.
And did you ever do anything to that prop gun to modify it?
Yes. I added this thing on the side of it called the clip draw, and what that is essentially it lays flush to the slide, and it allows you to put it in your waistband more securely, so if you have to carry it out. And then I also added a clear extended magazine on it.
And why did you put the clear extended magazine on it?
Well, the Glock 26 is a small, like, subcompact gun. The whole point of him carrying this was to make it look intimidating, to kind of scare people off that were going to try to harm him. So having the clear magazine and extended magazine made it look a little bit more intimidating.
Okay. To your knowledge, did there come a point where Rocky stopped carrying that prop gun?
Yes, it was after November 6th.
Objection foundation in terms of how he knows this, can we get the foundation?
How do you know?
Oh, because I was part of the decision. He gave it to me. He gave it to me after.
Objection's overruled. Thank you.
And why was that decision made?
Yeah, it's gonna call for speculation, unless there's first-hand knowledge.
Overruled.
The decision was made because, like I said, he carried it to deter violence, and then on November 6th, after the incident, it obviously didn't work, and he decided to just get actual armed security. He didn't want to carry it anymore.
Do you know what happened to that prop gun?
Yes, I brought it back to New York.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so after he gave it back to me, January, I believe, of next year, 2022, I flew back to New York with it, and I gave it to the co-director that we got it from.
When you said you gave it to him in New York, how did you get to New York with the prop gun?
Oh, we took a private jet.
Now, do you know if Rocky was licensed to possess firearms in 2021?
That's gonna, again, call for hearsay.
So there you have it, guys. And we kind of went a little bit into I wanted to play that. There was another part I wanted to play, and it kind of melds together. So there you have it. He modified it. He gave it an extended magazine so that it made it look a little more fearsome, allegedly. And that modification also, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on this point, but I believe that made it eject the cartridge. But I could be wrong on that. It made it automatically just have ejected the cartridge, and maybe that wasn't anything like that. But the testimony, without him testifying, without him testifying, none of that gets before the jury, right? None of that gets before the jury. Now, on top of that, right, we hear the ridiculous story about the fact that he returns this prop gun. He says, well, it wasn't working to intimidate people. It wasn't working. Well, of course it's not going to work, especially if Relly knew it was a prop gun. So the whole story sounds ridiculous. And I mean, listen, I understand that there's a concept of, hey, they just want to raise a doubt in the minds of the jury, right? They just want to raise a doubt as to whether or not that was a real firearm or not. But is it reasonable? Is it even reasonable to think that the reaction to this situation that had occurred on November 6th, which required him to get additional security, which he is aware that Relly is pursuing and has made a complaint to the LAPD. He's aware that Relly is planning to file a lawsuit, and I'm not sure when Relly filed the lawsuit. I believe one's already been filed. He's planning all these things. Does it make any sense that he's going to get rid of the prop gun? Hey, okay, He gets rid of the prop gun. He gets security. Fine. But then the reaction of his team is, let's fly it back to New York and let it get lost in a prop room instead of giving it to the LAPD and saying, listen, our guy is innocent. And in fact, he's a victim. And he's a victim of extortion. And this is a prop gun. And here's the evidence that it's a prop gun. And I understand the defense might come up, well, it's not our job to do that. It's not our job to turn that over. Well, yeah, but you would think that they would want to do that because that's a way, especially in Hollywood, that a high-powered attorney would go to the police and say, listen, you don't want to pursue this. It's a prop gun. Here it is. And I've got witnesses, and you talk to this guy and talk to this guy and talk to this guy and talk to the producer. Listen, we got all the evidence. This guy's an extortionist. In fact, we want you to investigate him for extortion. We want you to investigate him for attacking Rocky in the street and him having to pull the prop gun out to get him off his friend because he was striking his friend and beating his friend up, and turn this whole case against Relly. I mean, after all, it's not like they ran and arrested Rocky right away. They waited months. So again, Relly is not a likable witness. Relly, I agree with Joe Tacopini. He might very well be one of the worst witnesses next to Lil Woody in American jurisprudence history, right? And you're going to get to see that on display for the full 9 hours tomorrow. So tune in for that. But at the end of the day, Relly really doesn't matter because he's not needed to put the gun in Rocky's hand. He's not needed to establish that an altercation occurred. He's not needed for any of that. And then when you add in the fact that the very prop gun that could have exonerated Rocky was allowed to be taken to New York and disposed of and not secured, I am fearful that might be the nail in ASAP Rocky's coffin. And I do believe it, mark my words, and if someone from Rocky's defense watches this, you ask that jury if you get a conviction in this case. And you need to evaluate why you went and allow these witnesses, allow a witness like that to get on the witness stand and didn't figure out a different way around it because you need to do a different assessment. Not to mention the disaster that all three defense witnesses were in not understanding how to, I mean, Lewin's cross-examination could have absolutely been neutered by simply just confirming you didn't recall. Time and again, Lewin was expert in continuing to expand the questioning, extend the play like Russell Wilson does in football, and was so good at. He would extend the questioning on because the witness would say they don't recall. Lewin would pound back with, well, you're telling me you don't recall here? Well, I mean, and then it would open it back up. If they would have just simply said, hey, yeah, I don't recall, any follow-up questions would have been met with, objection, Your Honor, asked and answered. And if he would have continued, asked, he's badgering the witness. And the judge would have shut Lewin down, and these cross-examinations would never have gone to the direction. But these witnesses were trying to be slick. They were messing with Lewin. They were trying to be difficult. But what they ended up doing is they ended up hurting their own calls. He ended up extracting information out, just like he did out of ASAP 12E, who thought he was being slick, and he ends up slipping and saying, oh, yeah, it was warning shots. Because Lewin is an experienced lawyer. He's a good lawyer, whether you like him or not. And I was shocked and appalled at how unprepared these witnesses were for the cross-examination of Lewin, and that they weren't better prepared. And I think that there was a miscalculation made on the defensive side, and it was that they wanted Lewin to look bad because I think Joe Tacopina believed, let us bond with the jury, we're going to be the ones that are going to come in and look nice. We're going to be, Rocky's going to be this nice person, nice, well-behaved defendant, contrasting the state. You've got Relly, who's unlikable. You've got the prosecutor, who's a rude, boisterous jerk. But then the prosecutor comes in, and what does Lewin say? He talks to them, and he says, he's talking to the jury, and he says, hey, we're not going to let someone in our community. Lewin and the other prosecutor, I can't remember his name, But both of them pounded home the fact that this was their community. And they made the point that they're defending their community. And they made the point that here we have ASAP Rocky, who isn't originally from LA. He's brought in this out-of-state attorney, and ASAP Rocky believes he can come to LA, pull out a gun, and endanger our citizens. And if you don't think that some of these people in that jury who are citizens of LA, that didn't resonate with them, that they might not say, you know what, Lewin is a jerk, but he's doing his job. He's up against this powerful defense team. He's up against Rihanna and ASAP. And, I think the defense is in a lot more trouble than they think they're in. And listen, I don't say that lightly because my dad was a defense attorney, right? And I am always, I would say if there's a bias in me, it's definitely to the defense. And I like to try to find, I like to look and find the reasonable doubts. But in this case, for whatever reason, when I'm watching this, and I could be wrong, I've been wrong on some times I thought the jury might go not guilty. But I really have this terrible feeling, and I don't like Lewin. I don't want it to be guilty. I don't want that guy to get the satisfaction of winning against Joe Tacopina with the tactics that he used, suborning perjury. Because the reality of the situation is I don't think this case should have gone to trial. But at the same point, ASAP had a chance to take a 6-month plea and resolve this situation. And I understand that opens him up to civil liabilities. I understand why he probably didn't want to do it because he doesn't want to have to pay Relly a dime. But at the end of the day, if he pulled a gun out and he fired it in the middle of a street, you got to take some responsibility for that because you did endanger people. You endangered the community. You endangered the people that were walking down that street. And you just can't be doing those things. And it's a damn shame because the young man has so many things going for him and so many big deals and so many endorsement deals and so much big stuff that if he does get convicted, it will wreck his life. It will wreck his businesses. It will wreck everything. And of course, I'm sure Joe Tacopina will be absolutely devastated. And listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Joe Tacopina did a terrible job. I'm just saying from a strategic standpoint, putting these witnesses on, I think their strategy was a little bit overconfident. And I think they misread the room. And if I'm wrong, and I hope I am, I really do. I want to be wrong. I want to see a not guilty verdict. I will be so happy. And I will love to watch that prosecutor have to eat that not guilty verdict. But I am not feeling very good right now. It makes me almost feel sick to my stomach because I don't like the way this prosecutor acted. Because this prosecutor is the epitome of a prosecutor trying to win at all costs. Not worrying about his ethics, not worrying about, and again, as Joe Tacopina exposed him for in front of the world, he just got reversed at the Ninth Circuit for lying to a jury. This prosecutor, for him to get this win, if he does get this win, it just emboldens a guy like him in his tactics and the way he treated witnesses and the way he treated, the attorneys and the way he just objected and interjected. I mean, listen, it's how I'm sure he operates in every case, and I'm sure he's bullied many defense attorneys. And there are judges, I'm sure, that would let him do that. And he's the guy that convicted Robert Durst. So the guy's an experienced guy. He's a good lawyer from the standpoint of he knows what he's doing. He knows how to question. But I don't like him. And I'm not cheering for him to get the win, but I think he might. And I think that they may have proven their case. I can understand what he's talking about. I can understand what they're saying in the closing argument because in the defense helped them do it. And it really does speak to him. I mean, as much as I want to say, I don't like his tactics, but he's a good lawyer. He's a good lawyer. And at the end of the day, like my dad used to say, you're not there to be liked. My dad never cared if he was a liked individual. He only cared he used to tell people that. I don't care if you like me personally, but you're damn well going to respect me and respect me in the courtroom. And while I don't respect everything this prosecutor did, I do respect what he did do that was good. I do respect his strategy. And I do respect the way he went in and turned these witnesses into his own witnesses and walked people in the corners and outmaneuvered a very, very, very good defense attorney. And, like I said, it wasn't all done, in my opinion, on the ethical side of things. And there were tactics that were done, I think, on both sides that were not very good. But, hey, listen, we'll see what happens. So Let me know what you think in the comments. All right, I should have done this probably as a live, but I didn't because it just wasn't going to work out that way. Unfortunately, I have to edit things out. I have to edit interruptions out, and I don't want to be on live and have all those things happen. So I'd rather be able to just edit it down and put it out. But we are gonna get on the live train here, and I'm gonna bite the bullet, and we might have interruptions and things like that. But I want to talk to you. I want to get your opinion. But talk to me in the chat. If you're watching this, give me your opinion on this case. Give me your opinion on what's happening. Give me your opinion on the excerpts we watched. Give me your opinion on the prosecutor's job, Joe Tacopina's job. Like I said, ASAP Taco, ASAP Joey. Hell of an attorney. It was a treat to watch him. I love what he's doing. He's a great guy. If I ever got arrested for anything serious and I actually had a whole pile of money, I wouldn't hesitate to hire him as my attorney. But I think that there were a couple things in this case that he did that if he goes back and looks and reevaluates, if he loses the case, if it's a guilty verdict, I'm telling you, Joe, I'm telling you why. It just showed you. I'm pretty good at these things. Pretty good at handicapping these type of situations. But anyways, we're going to leave it there, guys. And, tomorrow we start up with the Simontelli trial starts again, the Rose Petal trial. I've got 2.5 days of testimony to get out still on that. I'm caught up on the testimony for Simontelli. And of course, ASAP Rocky will be in jury deliberations, but I still got some testimony to get out with that. And still a few more clips from the trial that I want to put out, but we'll be wrapping that up relatively soon. And then we've got a whole boatload of cases to take us into March for. There's a Major League Baseball star. I'm trying to remember his name. He'll be going on trial next month, potentially. And that's a very, very interesting case that should be one to watch. We've got the Laurie Vallow potentially that's going to be going on in March. We've got the Chidester case, which is the boat club case. That's supposed to get a trial in March. And of course, there's probably other ones that I aren't even aware yet. So we're going to be trying to cover them all. We're going to be trying to bring it to you, break it down. Remember, check the descriptions, okay? When you get these, I'm going to take a moment to talk about that because I want you guys to get the most out of this and most out of the experience on justice as a process, because there's a method to the madness, and you may not be aware of exactly what's going on. But obviously, we have our daily live broadcast of all the trials, and it starts there. Come in, join us, get in the chat, join the people that are watching. It's meant to give you an area to come in. I'm in and out. I'm going to, now that I hope we're getting out of the illness cycle, I'm going to be coming in more in normal times. I'm jumping into as you can see, my little man here just popped through. Give me 1 sec, buddy. But I'm popping in and out. I'm giving you guys my perspective. I'm giving you guys my, talks throughout these trials as they're going on. I haven't done that because we were going through one hell of a month and a half of just illness. So I've been kind of running the streams. But hold on 1 sec, buddy. But that's one experience. The next level of experience is when we get done with the lives, and during the lives, I'm going to be posting testimony. When I post a testimony, I'm going to be posting, it's going to be broken down in key moments and timestamps with key points of the testimony so that you can dig deeper into that testimony. Now, if you're not watching, sometimes maybe you're at work or whatever, and you want to be able to go through at your leisure, you can also choose to watch the trial that way, because it's going to cut out all the breaks and all the things, and you're going to be able to go through witness by witness by witness. But you're going to be able to dig deep into that. The other thing we're going to be doing is posting up clips, significant clips of significant things, arguing, times that attorneys are arguing, key moments, things of that nature. And then, of course, if I'm able to, and I have the ability and have time, I will try to edit down, depending on how many trials I'm carrying at a time, I will edit down the actual trial broadcast itself into a consumable video that you can watch and be able to sit down and watch. Normally, 8-hour day will get down to about 5.5, 6 hours because of breaks and lunch breaks and things like that. So you'll be on the lookout for that. Then we have Justice Watch Live. Justice Watch Live is what you're watching right now. It's the official podcast of Justice. is a process, and it's where I'm going to come and talk about cases that I'm covering. I'm going to talk about aspects of cases. We're going to cover things. We might even bring in guests like we had Ty Tucker on. I'll bring on other content creators, and we'll talk. And it's my forum to talk to you. It's our opportunity to talk together. It's our opportunity to discuss things and get to know each other. So obviously this is a pre-recorded live, so this is going to be more of a chat deal. But in the future, these are really meant to be live events that we come and talk. It's a more or less formalized situation. Then there will be special presentations that I might do where it'll be kind of like I did on the Ty Tucker case, deep dives and things of that nature. The other thing we're going to employ, which is going to make the experience of Justice Watch Live and some of these deep dives, we employ, just like you saw here, I'm employing AI. I've made a huge AI investment to help me get through this content faster, to help me dig deeper in, to help me get summaries and things out to you. And we're going to be able to have moments where when we're live, I'm going to do it. Let's ask ChatGPT. We can ask questions to have it dig into certain areas and places, and really unique experience. Like I said, I'm doing it on my own. It's enhanced my ability to cover a case, watch a case, and know what to watch and go and see it. So that's all coming. So tune in, and we are going to be doing, now that we are building a membership base with about 25 strong and building, we are going to be doing some exclusive members only lives where I'm going to bring it in, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to be watching testimony and pieces of the case, and we're going to do a deep dive, and I'm going to let you in on what is a very costly ability to come in and have the unlimited ChatGPT plan geared towards and trained towards the law. And we're going to be able to ask you questions and deep dive into our cases, and you can ask me questions, and we're going to go at it together. So that's coming up. So get your subscriptions ready. Become a member today, because that's going to be coming. It's going to be members only, and we'll be giving away members only exclusive things. These are all things that are coming, and things that will be coming down the line. So again, lots of big stuff, lots of fun things. The whole point is utilize the descriptions, utilize the timestamps, utilize those things to dig deeper into the case. If you go into a description of testimony, you're going to see it broken down to key moments. You're going to see key reflections. You're going to see a fact sheet. It's going to give you background on the case. So if you're just watching the video, you're not going far enough. Dig into that description. There's lots of information that you might not even know existed. There might be questions that you were wondering that's answered. And if you have a question, if you have something, let me know. Put it in the comments. And I am going to be doing some Justice Watch Live episodes where we're going to be just dealing with the comment section. We're maybe dealing with a couple of key comments, and I'm going to dig in and utilize AI, utilize myself, utilize all the resources that I have to get you the answers, to dig deep into these cases, and to be able to look at the justice system and watch justice. Because remember, justice is a process. It's not an outcome. So we're not, unlike Prosecutor Lewin, who's invested in the outcome of the case. He should not be. He should be invested in a fair process. And a fair process says you should not be putting up perjured testimony. But what's interesting to me is when perjured testimony gets put up in court, and this would be something I'm sure that'll be taken up down the road, which we know Relly committed perjury while he was on that witness stand, and it is to material things that are material to the case. Normally, that's a due process violation, because you can't defend yourself against lies, and the law recognizes that. Those are grounds to have the case dismissed. Obviously, the judge didn't decide to do that. He's putting it before the jury. Doesn't mean that on appeals that can't be delved into. And I'm sure Tacopino, as he was talking today, is going to have all of that and ready to go. But I mean, there are some tremendous due process issues that I see in this case. And listen, I am not a lawyer. Many of you following the channel should know that. But I will tell you this: you're talking to the son of the due process king. My dad was a due process specialist. It's what he helped and consulted with. He found due process issues, and he and I talked about it. He would have me analyze cases and analyze things, and I understand it intrinsically, like I said, but I am not a lawyer. I'm not going to been to law school. I'm not, a trained lawyer, but I'm just telling you, from my own perspective, leveraging all of my life experience, when I look at this case, I find it interesting that that has not been raised, and maybe it was, maybe it was, because we're not privy to everything, and this judge even shut us out of the jury instruction. So there's probably a lot we haven't seen. There's a lot of issues that haven't been raised, and of course, today Joe Tacopino pretty much all but told us that, because on justice served, he said that the gag order has been extended to include the sidebars that he cannot talk about that had to do with lies that were told and perjury that was suborned and things of that nature that are not being able to be discussed publicly until this trial is finished. So anyways, I will leave it there, guys. I appreciate all of you who've watched. If you do me a favor, do me a real solid here, hit the like button if you've made it this far. Hit the like button, share this video, and until then, guys, let justice prevail, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
The system's rigged, man, it's time to break free. Eyes wide open, gotta see what I see. Standing on the front lines, fighting for the truth. Lift the veil of lies, it's time to be the proof. Take a stand, don't you back down. Raise your voice, let's shake the town. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free. Marching with a purpose, we're taking it higher. Fighting through the struggle, igniting the fire. No more silence, we'll make the noise loud. Together in this battle, standing strong and proud. Injustice fades when courage aligns. Rise up together, break the confines. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free. So rise up now, it's our time to shine. Together we'll write a new paradigm. You paradigm, you paradigm. Whoa, whoa. We're the